great to have you with us, Vanilla, in
Thank
this
you.
interview. Very important for us to get to know your ideas about your father and to share with us. So the first question is, would you share with us what was your perception of your father over the different stages of his life?
Yes, that's interesting because, of course, over the years I've known him, things changed. He changed from an impoverished, young, very young assistant manager kind of status to an international businessman who'd worked like crazy to get to that state. So there were many stages en route. The thing that remained constant is interesting, and that's his work ethos. He worked constantly. He slept very little. He worked in the day jobs and he wrote all night. So very little sleep, very little sleep. But he did everything with that wonderful enthusiasm. I've never known him tired or ratty. He was just constantly engaged with what he was doing and alert to its importance, I think. I think he knew very early on that he was going to make a difference in the world and that the difference would be for the good. I don't know if you know, but he kept a little book of his published material. And he had that right from when he was about 20. And I'm very sure he was aware that it would be filled up with all his contributions, his articles, his books, his interviews. They're all listed in there as they occur. It's an interesting book. So yeah, he was a man with a mission, was he not? That was the sense that he gave me. And adorable, interesting, amusing. He liked to engage by being entertaining. He always told jokes, whatever age group he was in. Sorry, I've lost the thread here. We were talking about when he was a very young man. Yeah, he was much more earnest when he was a young man. He was very serious about things. I remember him building me a snowman in that winter in Sheffield, and he went outside the window and rolled the ball and put he built the classic snowman. But it was all done very seriously and very properly with the pipe and the carrot and the coal. There was no sense of hoopla. It was, this is a snowman. I remember it vividly. So as time moved on, that was one house, and then in another house he was much more... was he more playful? Yes, he designed a card game for me and my brothers, which we quite liked until we discovered it was to help us learn to spell. And the minute you've got a game that you know is a learning concern, forget it. So, but before that, he took things very seriously. He taught me to play chess, but he taught me using boiled sweets, which is rather short-termism in chess, because you want to take the sweet. You don't want to build a strategy. I think when he realised that, he changed that. But yes, he was playful, he was fun, he was interesting. He always had stuff to tell us, me and my brothers, about his life and what he was doing, and how he was very informative, he was interesting, and we loved him to bits. Yeah. So, sorry.
No, but tell us more, a little bit more about other stages of his life after you were a child.
Okay, so I'm kind of positioning him in the different houses we lived in, and then I've got a clearer image of him. So, first house, Laputa House, he had one of those moustaches, and he smoked a churchwarden pipe, and was terribly thin, very long, thin, I thought, old man. I remember sitting in there. I was sitting on the side of the bath watching him shave. So I don't know what the conversation was doing, but he stopped and looked at me and he said, "You think I'm old, don't you?" And I just didn't even bother replying. Of course he was old. And he just cracked up laughing and he said, there are people who think I am too young. I thought, but I found a mention to this in his poem recently, The One Person Metagame. He talks about everywhere old men rule. Some of them are as old as 30. It's very sweet. Anyway, that's Laputa House. And then we went to Door Road, 18 Door Road. That was called Sylvan Turret. And my bedroom was next to his study, so I got the lion's share of his free time, I think. He'd read to me, he'd read the Iliad and the Odyssey. He clearly read things that interested him. There was no Janet and John allowed. So I got the Iliad, and that was fabulous. I mean, and he was very fond of Alice Through the Looking Glass, I think, the one that had all the math jokes in it. So I had to listen to the math jokes as well. He cooked for us. In that house, I remember especially, he would make us white bread sandwiches covered in honey and sprinkled with sugar. I mean, whoa. Now, we know Stafford was a diabetic, but he believed that glucose was essential for the brain and that sugar was a food, and we got it. But he was a good cook. I mean, he always did the roast lunch on a Sunday, the beef thing and the potato thing, you know, things that nobody eats anymore. He was good at all that. So anyway, that's Door Road, Sylvan Turret. From there we moved to Weybridge to a house called Caprice. And his study was off the house. It was it was tacked onto the back of a garage. And that's where he built the computers, where he put in Daphnia and what are those other things? Those anemone type things. Anyway, that was great fun. The house was full of interesting things going on. And of course, there were always interesting people coming and going. In fact, I must tell you, when we were in Door Road, Grey Walter came and he bought the tortoises, Elmer and Elsie. And they woke me up because they were steering them with a light. They were light sensitive by then. Grey Walter had just sorted that out. And Stafford knew I read in bed and had a torch. I thought nobody knew, but he came in, woke me up, took my torch. And so they were on the floor outside my bedroom playing with tortoises. And I thought they were for me, you know. What do grown-ups have with toys? So I was quite miffed when they took them away, but I got very sanguine about it. I thought, so grown-ups need toys as well. Interesting. And that's another thing. He burst into my bedroom one night with a load of people and they were looking for a glass eye, and he remembered he'd given me his doll. He had a doll when he was a child that he loved and which he gave to me in the fullness of time. And it was made of porcelain and it had a glass eye. So he took my loved doll and took its glass eye. And they were having a treasure hunt. The people in the office. This is at Cyber House in Sheffield. Anyway, back now to Weybridge. What happened there? Oh, la la. More babies. I mean, more brothers. And yes, that's right. Because of the Daphnia and the other stuff, I got interested in aquarii, and I had a fish tank, and then I had fish tanks for breeding the fish, and I got really into it. And Stafford, being a systems man, wasn't particularly interested in how the fish themselves were, but he wanted to understand how I was feeding them and taught me to how to grow their food. You know, I'd have milk and bread and wireworms in my bedroom, and Daphnia, of course, in another thing. I think, in fact, I was just supplying him with stuff for his computers, unbeknownst to me. So that was fun. Yeah, he was amazing, actually. I remember my mother being absent one time, and he was child-minding, and there was a dining table and a living room and a sort of dog-leg arrangement. And Stafford was sitting at the table writing a letter and controlling his large brood of children. Oi, ding dong, you know. And the next day, the day after, he showed me the letter that he'd been writing in one of the big newspapers. I was amazed. I didn't know how he could concentrate like that. It was very impressive. And that was the room where we had curtains that closed when it got dark and opened when a car went past. They were all clever ideas that had Posywid attitudes. So moving on from that house got too small, too many babies, and then we went to a great big one, which was called, oh la la, I've forgotten.
Firkins?
Firkins, thank you. Great big one, full of beers. And
you should explain what Firkins means.
Yes, a firkin is a container for beer. And it contains a number of pints. I forget how many. There's a firkin and a kilderkin. Our subsequent house was called Kilderkin. Yeah. And in that house, gosh. Yes, Stafford's study was in a sort of place off the back. He converted an outhouse, I think. But booked very beautifully, you know, all carpeted and bookcased. That was where my parents finally sorted out their marriage by ending it. And scene of many a trauma, actually. So the next house is Kilderkin. No, is that right? Yes, Kilderkin's the second one of that tribe. And by that time, Stafford was married to Sally Stedman, my stepmother, who had 2 babies by him, Polly and Harry, who were lovely. And I was pretty much out of it. I'd started art school, but Stafford and I kept in ridiculously close touch, actually, for a father and daughter. It's only in retrospect I realise it was unusual. But we wrote to each other, and I would ring him if I didn't have a phone, and I would go and see him in his office in London, great big posh thing with a lift all the way up. So we kept in close contact all the time, really. And his work got more and more complex. In fact, by the time I was living in Paris when the Chilean balloon went up, and he was in Chile, and I'd ring home when I home to Kilderkin when I knew that he was there between visits, and then when Allende died, the students took to the street, and I was living in the embassy area for some unknown reason, and there was a lot of gas going on, and they were taking shelter in my apartment. So of course I knew that this was happening, so I rang home and found him absolutely desperate. You know, he didn't know what was happening. He didn't know what had happened to his stuff. He didn't know his crew were all right, his colleagues, the people he knew. He was distraught. There's nothing I could do. I did go back as soon as I was able to see him, and there was Raoul. Raoul had turned up, and some other people. There were Chileans staying in the house. You know, there was a bit of a refugee spot. It was lovely. And Stafford was taking great delight in the fact that he was spending time in the Athenaeum with Chilean refugees plotting the counter-coup. It was very sweet. Has that covered all of the houses? I can't remember. Because after Kilderkin, of course, that's when he came to an agreement with my stepmother, Sally, that she would live in a house. He'd buy her a house in Wales, and he would visit when he could and see his children grow, and he would buy a cottage, and they would have intermittent contact. And this was acceptable to Sally, although I don't think she realised how hard it was going to be. For instance, she got water from a well. Stafford, of course, didn't have water at all. So, despite the fact it rains all the time in Wales, nobody had any water. And the kids grew up there. They went to the local comp, learnt Welsh, and were very indignant that by the time they left, there was so much immigration from the the English cities, that they were the only Welsh speakers left, and having gone to all the trouble of learning it. Anyway, so Stafford took up in the cottage and was content. Poor man. I mean, he was 50 then, and he'd worked flat out all his life. And of course he didn't stop. He carried on working flat out, but without the pressure. I think then it was up to him. He still had to care for Sally and the kids, so he still had to earn money. So I think that's where the professorship thing came in. He was always very apprehensive about joining academe. He thought he regarded that as a potential compromise, which I don't think it ever became because he kept his eye on it, you know. So he had to do bits of work, keep the family alive. The rest of us, me and my brothers, had all established ourselves in, or failed to establish ourselves in various careers and cities. Yes, that was a
Actually,
lovely
I wanted
time.
to bring something that we found yesterday in your office. That was the letter that he wrote when he was 50 years old after Chile
Ah, yes,
in the
yes,
cottage. That
yes.
letter is very impressive.
Yes.
But I mean, we don't need to show the letter, but I mean, you can tell the story.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yes, if I can think of it.
Well, so that's where we are.
Okay,
So
well, I
we
can
start from
talk
there.
about my time then
Exactly.
and how it all panned out with Stafford,
And,
which
and
is
then as much as you want about him, and then John will come with the second question that is the only other question we decided.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
We're rolling. We're ready.
good. Okay, yeah.
Anytime.
Lovely.
Ask the question, Angela.
You were talking to us about the stuff of when he moved to the cottage after Chile
Yeah.
and all the
Yeah.
changes that he had in his
Yes.
life and personality and everything.
Because at that time there were a lot of changes in my own life too. I'd been living in Paris and then moved to the Forest of Dean, which is a little bit different. I don't know if you know the forest, it's a wonderful place. And I also swapped husbands, so that was a bit of a change as well. And Stafford used to drive down and just sit. My cottage was ridiculous, you know, it was an old stone cottage. We did have a kitchen sink. We didn't have a toilet. Oh, this all sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it? We didn't have a toilet. We had an Elsan. And anyway, I remember him coming down and sitting there and being very still and quiet. And, you know, he was so energetic and so vibrant. But he was lovely. It was great. Those were the days when he used to send me a crate of Madeira for Christmas. Anyone who knows the work of Flanders and Swan will know about that. Will get the reference. Yes,
Alan Pearson was a great fan.
he's
Laughed
wonderful,
so hard,
isn't he? Yes, have some Madeira. So that was my Christmas present, which was tremendous. You know, I was living penniless in a hippie commune, and all we had to drink was Madeira. So anyway, Stafford used to come and join us, and then he announced the changes he was making. I mean, the process had begun. He'd got the books out to John Moores. He'd had David Whitaker down to examine all the books and to come up with, well, you know, the mechanism of dismantling a household. He then moved to Wales to stay with a woman called Anne. And I can't remember where this place was, but it was beautiful. She had an old stone farmhouse right by a river, and the river was so deep, and it ran over gravel, so you got this constant music. It was just a fabulous place. I loved it there. Actually, that was before I moved to my cottage, so he'd already got to Wales. And then when I got my cottage, he'd come and stay in mine, and then he found his. I'm sure everybody knows the story of Stafford finding his cottage. No?
No, tell the story again.
Yes. Well, he would drink in the local pubs where he was much appreciated. He had a pub where Dylan Thomas used to used to drink, and he was very fond of going there, sitting in Dylan's chair. Anyway, they all knew him, and they all knew he was house hunting. So one day someone comes up to him and says, here's a little cottage, it'll suit you down to the ground. And Stafford realised it was on an intersection of 8 ley lines, which is quite impressive, really. So off he went and he bought it. And he paid 8 grand for it, which, you know, my cottage had cost 1,250 quid. Admittedly, he had more land, but they did not see him coming, frankly, in the wilds of Wales. So he got this place and moved in, got 2 dogs, 2 giant English sheepdogs who were completely untrained and very smelly, who just ran around the place. They were the ones that leapt up on Brian Eno when he visited. He tells that story about being covered by muddy dogs, and I know that feeling. And yeah, he had a few happy years there, learning Welsh. He did spinning. He taught himself to spin. He was very fond of Mahatma Gandhi, and found the man's insistence on homespun extremely interesting. I mean, it destroyed the English woolen industry, by one man spinning. And he was charmed by this. And he'd been to see him a couple of times in India, so he was familiar with him and his work. And so he learnt to spin, which, you know, there's degrees of success in spinning. His wool was always a bit lumpy and with different cohesions. I'm not quite sure why. I think he never combed it properly. Anyway, he'd give wool to people to make into things, and there were always complaints. But things exist that he spun the wool, and you know, like things for holding kettles, pot holders, that kind of thing. Anyway, he seemed very contented there. I'd get down there when I could to see him. And that change of life really suited him. I mean, it stopped him dying, frankly. If he carried on working at the pace he was working and living the life that he lived, he would have died, sure as eggs is eggs, you know. So it saved his life and certainly his sanity. And he developed his I nearly said esoteric practices, but that's not really the word. His meditative practices, which he'd always done. His meditation was important to him. Also, the physical exercises he did, Tai Chi. He'd done that for years, and yes, so you know, he developed all that stuff. And lived quite happily. I think the winters were a problem. It's very cold there. He had a huge stove where he had to get wood for it, but that was okay. And the cottage itself could be kept warm. Its old stone holds the like this place, you know, it holds the heat. But one year he did get snowed in, and of course he was reliant on his old Land Rover to go and get the buckets of water for his living and drinking purposes, and so he couldn't get out. So he started melting water. He'd melt it on the stove in old cigar tins. And he said, you know, it takes this much snow to make this much water. He was very cross about that. And then, yes, mice were the next thing. They tunnel in through the snow, making little tunnels. So then he designed a mousetrap using these tins that he got cigars in. And he was again quite indignant because he said he had heard it said that if you design a good mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. And they didn't. So he was stuck in the cottage in the snow designing mousetraps and failing to get rescued. Yes, he had many adventures there. And then in the fullness of time, he had to work. Of course, he had he had Sally and the kids to care for. So he accepted some jobs. I think it was around about then he took the job as Manchester professor and kind of liked it, you know, and then learned to like it. And then I met Elena. And then life changed for him completely. They had to decide where to live. They wanted to be together. They were in love and they were ideal for one another. So the cottage became a place that he came to for half the year. And the dogs went back to the breeders. And I don't know what the mice did. Probably still there talking these stories. So... yeah, that was how he survived Chile. So,
But it was in the cottage that he wrote some of the books, the latest books or not. So it was also for him a time of just a lot of academic production.
I don't know about academic, but I mean, I know he wrote the second volume. Yes, that
Prayer
he
of the
wrote
Fern.
that in the cottage, and I've got tapes from him from that time saying how hard he was working on it and how he wanted to get it right and was afraid that that he wouldn't, you know, so he was working very diligently on that project. I can't remember what books come after. I can't think sequentially.
Heart of Enterprise.
Heart of Enterprise.
came
And
later.
did he do?
1979, yeah.
And where did he do that? Do we know?
Well, it must have been in the cottage.
In the cottage
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, good.
I think he did in the cottage Heart of the Enterprise, the second edition of Brain of the Firm,
Right.
and Diagnosing the System for Organization. And also, I mean, Beyond
Dispute.
Dispute.
Beyond
as well.
Dispute. Right,
Yeah.
right. Gosh, Phew, very productive time. Yes, he had a computer there. And in the fullness of time, when he had a stroke, he got the dragon voice activated thing. And he did something like half a page a day. And I said, ooh, how awful. And he said, without that, he would have gone mad. That I always remember him saying, for someone like me, this output is essential, outlet is essential. And I thought, someone like me? Who is he talking about? By then I'd realised that the whole world wasn't like Stafford. Someone like me. Yeah. But I guess he meant a creative geezer. You know, if you don't have an outlet, you do go bonkers. So that's the cottage.
Okay, shall we?
Okay, let's go move to the next
So the
question.
last question is an impossible question because
My favourite.
because obviously he was your father
Yeah.
and had a huge influence on you, but he was a truly remarkable man, and I wondered, in reflection, looking back over all the years you knew him, what were the most important things that you learnt or that you gathered just through your interaction with him and his being?
Well, I guess the most important thing he gave me was confidence. He spotted my artistic endeavours very early. Excuse me. I was born painting, and he ran with that, which was incredibly good of him, because when I got to art school, I realised very quickly there was no way I could ever be an artist in this culture. I mean, in my first term, this is hysterical, I said to my tutor, this is late 60s, yeah, 1960s, why are there no women artists? And he said, oh, I don't know, I've never thought about it. He said, you'd think being able to do makeup and dress sense and everything, they'd be really good. And I thought, So then I went to my head of department and said, why are there no women artists? And he said, well, I teach women very differently. I said, And he said, I'm always frightened that girls are going to cry, so I never grip them properly. So the first time he did me, I locked myself in the bog to cry, because I did. But yeah, I thought, okay, this is a man's world. We know this. Let's not trouble too much about engaging with it. But with Stafford behind me saying, do it, do it, do it, do it, I felt completely empowered to be an artist, just not participate in the wonderful world of, how do you say, not commercial art, that means something else. The competitive world of gallery and la-di-da-di-da art. I didn't need to do that. I did little local shows. I did community events. I worked very much in the undercurrent of art. I had friends in the real art world, but I didn't belong there. And that I was quite happy with that. And that was down to Stafford. He gave me permission, to fail, actually. Yes, I'm jolly glad he did too, gosh. Yes, I once thanked him. I said, you've done the big car and the swimming pool and everything, so I'm under no obligation to do that for myself. I know what it's like. And he said, oh, I'm glad it paid off for someone, darling. You can imagine. Yeah. Bless him. So I've forgotten your original question, John. So about the influence
really
he had on
what
me.
You
Yeah.
learned from him and how
Yes.
he changed you and his influence.
Well, certainly the confidence thing, the ability to just spot what was needful and go for it, if to whatever degree of success or not.
I mean, I found for myself, and talking to Angela and lots of other people, that Stafford always saw the best in people.
Oh, unbelievably, yes. And was always, encouraging. Yeah.
And sort of gave you the, well, I guess it's confidence or
permission,
just the feeling,
yeah.
just to be who you were without having to
Yes,
try to justify anything.
That's right.
Which is about the greatest gift you can give to anybody.
Actually, you're right, John, yes. Without having to go through the permitted channels, you could be who you were. Yeah.
Did you feel in any way engaged with his religious practice? It's religious is the wrong word, but it's meditative and
Well, he was always checking on me because he knew that I was attracted to that end of things. He didn't actually teach me formally as any kind of teacher, but he did check on me. What was I doing about this? Had I read that? Did I understand that? He kept a very weather eye on my religiosity and on my these words are so inept, aren't they?
Yes.
I mean, if I use the word occult, that sounds creepy, and that's not what's meant at all. But
But it's a spirituality.
the spiritual, well, even spiritual's got fae, hasn't it? Or it has round here anyway. Yeah, spirituality in the south of France is something else. But you get the drift. He kept an eye on me, and I don't think we ever fell out over anything. Although we did have some serious talks where we disagreed, but I can't remember why.
But when you did your master on esoteric studies and when you followed that route, was he interested? Was he related to you? Was he useful? Talking
I
with.
think he was dead.
Was it?
Yes, I did it quite late. Yes.
So that was after.
That was
died.
after he died. Yes, he may well have helped, but not in any ways I can enumerate. But before I did that, we had many talks about the content of the stuff I would be studying. So he was familiar with the work of Gurdjieff and Bennett. He was familiar with Blavatsky. He didn't approve of any of them. And when I say approve, he didn't regard them as spiritual leaders in any way.
Krishnamurti?
Krishnamurti, yes. Well, I was very fond of Krishnamurti, and then Stafford didn't gainsay me, but I can't remember if he was a big fan. Ouspensky, of course, whom I rate. I think he did. I can't remember, but we certainly... Oh, yes. Who's that? Avicenna, Rambam man, the one who wrote The Guide for the Perplexed.
Yes.
Yeah, he was very good. He had 2 or 3 names, Avicenna and is this Gracie? Oh, Gracie will know. Hello, darling. Who's the man who wrote The Guide to the Perplexed? He was an Arab from the 15th century.
Oh no, I was thinking of a different guide for because
Yeah.
that was what's his name? The guy
About
who worked for the
Schumacher.
Colour Board. Yeah, Schumacher. that's
Oh
right,
no, it's
yeah.
not Schumacher. No, we're going way back here. Yeah. Oh, well, never mind. Hello, you're going to join us.
Okay.
So where have we got to? Yes, Stafford and the occult. He was fascinated by everything, wasn't he? He was always in there paying attention and generally, yeah.
And what would you say about his political opinions? What kind of person, character was he, politically speaking?
Politically speaking, okay, when he was a very young man, still just out of the army and just got his vote, his father at Christmas asked him how he'd voted, and Stafford confessed to voting socialist, and his father threw him out of the house. So he was quite keen on standing up for himself, so that was that. He'd always been a socialist voter in Britain when he was participating in that system. I think he got lefter and lefter, of course he did. But he often laughed about being a Marxist. He said, people think I'm a Marxist. I'm far left of Marx. So, and of course there's all the jokes about the Marx brothers, which some of them crop up in his books. They're, yeah, very funny.
An 8-year-old.
Yes. What other politics? I mean, I once asked him why he never stood for Parliament, actually, because I would have thought he'd have been great. He wanted change. He could have been effective, and he said, well, first of all, he said that he couldn't afford to. He had too many children, and the salary was too low. And the second thing, so it was my fault, right? And the second thing was he didn't think one would be effective at all. He thought it was just a sop. Democracy, the sop, and nothing would get done if he joined. Which fair enough, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Did he talk to you about Marx as a systems thinker? He once told me that Marx was one of the few economists he'd ever read who actually who wrote systemically.
No.
Okay.
No, we never had that discussion. Left that out. I'll tell you one discussion we did have, which will amuse you, the father-daughter discussion, when he told me the facts of life.
Okay.
That was very funny. So he sat me down, and you know that paper he wrote on, the narrow-lined, blue-lined paper, these blocks of it, that's where he wrote all his books. You see them in John Moore's. And he wrote on it, and he wrote down, he did me drawings, he showed everything that happened, you know, we had uteruses and we had this. And he said, there, do you understand that? And I said, yeah, I think so. I said, I'm never going to do that, though. and he cracked up laughing and said, well, you might like it, actually. Yeah. And we left it. And then when I did have a go, I went and complained, because he hadn't mentioned erections. And I knew about penises because my brothers all had them, but I'd never ever seen an erect penis. And the first thing I saw coming at me like that, your way. Anyway, I taxed him about that because when the time came to explain to Polly, my sister, he said, where did I go wrong? And I said, blah, blah, blah. And he said, oh, I can't believe I missed that. He was quite shocked at himself, you know, but of course what's obvious to a man is not apparent to a girl. So that was quite fun. Never mind Marx, you know.
What age were you when he explained?
A little bit too young, actually. I can't remember. 14 maybe. You know, you look about right, but actually you're not there yet.
It's never right.
It's never right. You've got to.
Or too late.
Yes. I'm sure.
Interesting. That's great.
Well, wonderful.
Good. Are we done?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Can we say hello to Gracie now? Gracie.